Have you ever stood in an old theater after the crowds have gone home? When the only thing left is the dust dancing in a single beam of light and the profound echoing silence. In that quiet, you can almost feel the ghosts, the energy of every performance, every roar of applause, every whispered hope from the wings. It all seems to linger in the air. The Grand Ole Opry in Nashville is a place like that. Its wooden stage, the famed circle, is more than just timber. It's a vessel of memory, consecrated by the footsteps of legends. We remember the Titans, of course, Johnny Cash, Patsy, Cline, Hank Williams. Their names are carved into the very soul of American music. But what about the other voices? The ones that burn just as brightly, but perhaps for a shorter time. The voices that filled that hall with breathtaking talent, earned their place in that sacred circle, and then, through the unpredictable, often cruel twists of fate, faded from the public consciousness. Their stories are not lesser. They are in many ways more profound. They speak to the fragility of fame, the brutal randomness of life, and the quiet, unshakable dignity of the human spirit when the applause dies down. This is the story of one of those voices, a voice that was pure Carolina sunshine, a talent that won the heart of a nation overnight, and a spirit that endured a tragedy that would have shattered most. This is the story of a true daughter of the Grand Ole Opry, a woman whose melody was nearly lost to time. This is the life of Margie Bowes. To understand Margie, you first have to understand the world that created her. Roxborough, North Carolina, in 1941, the year of her birth, was a world away from the gleaming Nashville skyline that would one day define her career. This was the rural South, a land of tobacco fields, Baptist churches, and front porch storytelling. Life was governed by the seasons, by hard work, and by a deep-seated sense of community. The Great Depression had left its scars, and the nation was on the precipice of entering a world war. In this environment, escape and expression were not luxuries. They were necessities, and more often than not, they were found on the radio. In the 1940s and 50s, the radio was the hearth of the American home. Families would gather around the warm glow of the vacuum tubes to listen to President Roosevelt's fireside chats, to catch the latest episode of The Lone Ranger, and most importantly, to let the music of the Grand Ole Opry wash over them. From the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, the signal of WSM, the air castle of the South, carried the sounds of country music across the nation. For a young girl like Margie Bowes, listening in a small North Carolina town, these weren't just songs. They were dispatches from another universe. The plaintive wail of Roy Acuff, the cheerful yodel of Eddie Arnold, the pioneering harmonies of the Carter family. This was the soundtrack of her childhood, the language of her soul. This era's country music was fundamentally different from the polished product we know today. It was raw, honest, and deeply rooted in the life experiences of its audience. The songs were about real things: faith, family, heartbreak, financial hardship, and the simple joys of a Saturday night. It was music for working people by working people. And for a young girl with a nascent talent, it was an open invitation. The message was clear. You don't need to be from a big city or a wealthy family to have a voice. You just need a guitar, 3 chords, and the truth. It was in this fertile soil of authentic, heartfelt American music that the seeds of Margie Bowes' own musical journey began to sprout. She wasn't just a listener, she was a student, absorbing the phrasing, the emotion, and the storytelling that poured from her family's radio, dreaming of the day she might add her own voice to that powerful nationwide chorus. From a very young age, it was clear that Margie was different. While other children were playing games, she was drawn to the old family guitar, Her small hands struggled at first, pressing down on the steel strings until her fingertips were raw. But she was persistent, driven by an innate musicality that defied explanation. She wasn't formally trained. She learned by listening, by mimicking the records and the radio broadcasts that filled her home. She'd sit for hours, patiently figuring out the chords to a Kitty Wells song, her ear guiding her where no teacher could. Her voice, even then, possessed a remarkable clarity and an emotional depth that was startling in someone so young. It was a voice that seemed to already understand the themes of love and loss that were the bedrock of country music. Her first stage was not a grand auditorium, but the humble platform of local events and church gatherings. But her talent was too bright to remain a local secret for long. As a teenager, she found her way to a regional institution that served as a crucial stepping stone for the Virginia Barn Dance. Broadcast from the studios of WDVA Radio in nearby Danville, Virginia, these barn dance shows were a vital part of the country music ecosystem. They were a smaller, more intimate version of the Grand Ole Opry, a place where young performers could hone their craft in front of a live audience and, more importantly, a live radio microphone. Imagine the scene: a packed studio, the air buzzing with excitement. Families would come from miles around to see the show in person. Margie, still just a teenager, would step up to that microphone, guitar in hand, and for a few minutes the airwaves belonged to her. This wasn't just practice, it was a crucible. Performing live on the radio taught her timing, stage presence, and how to connect with an unseen audience. It was here that she began to build a name for herself, her pure, powerful voice becoming a local favorite. She was no longer just a girl with a dream. She was a performer, a rising star on the vibrant Virginia music scene. But Margie's ambitions stretched far beyond the signal range of WDVA. She had her eyes on a much bigger prize. In 1958, an opportunity arose that had the power to change everything. Ted Mack's original amateur hour was more than just a TV show. It was a national phenomenon, a genuine star-making machine. For decades, first on radio and then on television, it had provided a platform for undiscovered talent from every corner of America. Winning on Ted Mack's show was a golden ticket, a near guarantee of professional interest. At just 17 years old, Margie Bowes decided to take that leap. This was no small decision. It meant traveling to New York City, a world away from the familiar comforts of Roxborough. It meant competing against a diverse range of acts, singers, dancers, comedians, jugglers, all vying for the same dream. Stepping onto that brightly lit television stage, facing the cameras and a live national audience, must have been an experience of overwhelming terror and exhilarating hope. Many young performers would have crumbled under the pressure. But Margie had been steeled by her time on the Virginia Barn Dance. She was a professional in the making. When her moment came, she didn't try to be anyone but herself. She sang a country song, her voice filled with the genuine, heartfelt emotion that had become her signature. She wasn't just performing, she was testifying. And the nation listened. In an era before auto-tune and slick production, authenticity was paramount. The audience recognized it in her instantly. The votes poured in, and when the final tally was announced, the young girl from North Carolina was crowned the winner. In that moment, Margie Bowes ceased to be a local talent. She was a national sensation. The victory was a thunderclap that echoed all the way to Nashville's Music Row. The industry had taken notice. Her life was about to change, faster and more dramatically than she could have ever imagined. The wake of her victory on the original amateur hour was a whirlwind. The phone began to ring. Telegrams arrived. Suddenly, the most powerful people in the music business knew her name. Among them was Wesley Rose, one of the most influential figures in Nashville. Rose was not just a music publisher, he was a kingmaker. As the head of the powerhouse publishing firm A. Cuff Rose, he controlled the copyrights to a vast catalog of country hits. In 1957, he had co-founded a new record label, Hickory Records, as a vehicle to develop and promote new talent. He had a keen ear for an authentic voice and a hit song, and in Margie Bowes, he heard both. In 1959, Margie signed her first recording contract with Hickory Records. For a young artist, this was an incredible opportunity. She wasn't just signing to any label. She was joining a company run by a man who was at the very epicenter of the Nashville sound. Wesley Rose didn't just sign artists, he nurtured them. He paired them with the best songwriters and the finest session musicians. The legendary A-Team that included names like Chet Atkins, Floyd Kramer, and Buddy Harman. These were the very musicians who were crafting the sophisticated string-laden arrangements of the Nashville sound, making country music more palatable to a wider, pop-oriented audience. Hickory Records handed Margie a song that seemed tailor-made for her voice and persona. It was written by the brilliant songwriter Boudleaux Bryant, one half of the legendary husband and wife team Felice and Boudleaux Bryant, who had penned massive hits for the Everly Brothers like Bye Bye Love and All I Have to Do Is Dream. The song was titled Poor Old Heartsick Me. It was a masterpiece of simplicity and emotional honesty. The lyrics spoke of a universal experience, seeing a former lover with someone new and the quiet devastation that follows. But it was Margie's delivery that elevated the song to something truly special. She didn't oversing it. She didn't resort to vocal acrobatics. Instead, she inhabited the lyric, her voice filled with a palpable sense of resignation and sorrow. The production was classic Nashville sound, a gentle shuffling rhythm, weeping steel guitar, and a clean, crisp recording that allowed her voice to shine. When Poor Old Heartsick Me was released, it struck an immediate chord with the public. It began climbing the Billboard country charts, eventually breaking into the coveted top 10. For Margie Bowes, it was a dream come true. Her voice was now pouring out of radios from coast to coast. The song made her a star, but more than that, it opened the door to country music's most sacred institution. On the strength of that one-hit single, Margie Bowes was invited to become a member of the Grand Ole Opry. At just 18 years old, she stepped into the wooden circle on the stage of the Riemann Auditorium. This was the moment that validated everything: the hours spent with her guitar, the nerve-wracking performances on the barn dance, the gamble she took on Ted Mack's show. To be a member of the Opry was to be welcomed into the family. It meant you had arrived. She was now sharing a stage with the very idol she had grown up listening to on the radio back in Roxborough. She was no longer just a fan of the Grand Ole Opry. She was one of its stars. The girl with the Carolina Sunshine voice had found her home. Becoming a member of the Grand Ole Opry in the late 1950s was like being granted entry into an exclusive, slightly chaotic, and deeply devoted family. Backstage at the Ryman Auditorium wasn't a place of pristine dressing rooms and quiet solitude. It was a bustling, vibrant hub of activity, thick with the smell of popcorn, perfume, and nervous energy. It was a place where legends casually mingled with newcomers, where a conversation with Minnie Pearl might be interrupted by Roy Acuff balancing a fiddle on his chin. For Margie, a teenager suddenly thrust into this world, it must have been both intoxicating and intimidating. She was now part of a remarkable sorority of female artists who were blazing new trails in a male-dominated industry. Women like Kitty Wells, the undisputed queen of country music, had shattered conventions with her groundbreaking hit, It Wasn't God Who Made Honky honky-tonk angels. Gene Shepard was a firecracker, a hard-driving honky-tonk singer who refused to be anything but herself. And then there was Patsy Cline, whose transcendent voice was already on its way to becoming the stuff of legend. Margie didn't just share a stage with these women, she shared a space, a camaraderie born of mutual respect and shared experience. They understood in a way no one else could the unique pressures and triumphs of being a woman in country music. They offered advice, shared stories, and forged a bond in the wings of the mother church of country music. Margie became a familiar and beloved face at the Opry, her performances a regular highlight. But the life of a recording artist demanded more than just Saturday night appearances. She continued to record for Hickory and later for larger labels like Decca and the smaller Stop Records. While she never quite replicated the massive chart success of Poor Old Heartsick Me, she released a string of solid, well-crafted country singles. Songs like One Time Too Many and My Love and I showcased her vocal versatility and her ability to deliver a story with unwavering conviction. During this period, her personal life also became intertwined with the fabric of the Nashville scene. She entered into a marriage with Doyle Wilburn. This wasn't just any marriage, it was a union of two prominent figures in the country music world. Doyle, along with his brother Teddy, formed the Wilburn Brothers, one of the most popular and successful duos of the era. They were Opry mainstays, known for their flawless harmonies and their incredibly popular syndicated television show, The Wilburn Brothers Show. The show was a launching pad for many future superstars, including a young Loretta Lynn, whom the brothers took under their wing. Margie's marriage to Doyle placed her at the very heart of this country music dynasty. It was a world of television tapings, extensive touring, and constant creative activity. However, the pressures of two high-profile careers and the demands of life on the road can take a toll on any relationship. The marriage was passionate, but ultimately proved to be short-lived. Its end was another chapter in the story of her life, a personal heartbreak that she, like so many country artists, would channel back into the emotional honesty of her music. She navigated her personal life with the same quiet grace she displayed on stage, maintaining her professionalism and her standing within the Opry family. Through the shifting tides of musical trends and personal changes, one thing remained constant. Margie Bowes was a singer, and the stage of the Grand Ole Opry was her anchor. For nearly 4 decades, Margie Bowes lived the life she had dreamed of as a little girl in North Carolina. While she may not have been a consistent chart topper, she was a deeply respected and integral part of the country music community. She was a singer's singer, admired by her peers for her vocal purity and her unwavering professionalism. She toured, she recorded, and she remained a faithful member of the Opry, her presence a comforting constant for generations of fans. Her life had found a rhythm, a steady beat of performance and creation. And then in 1995, that rhythm was shattered in an instant. It was a car accident, a brutal, violent collision that changed the entire trajectory of her life. The details are sparse, as Margie was a private person, but the consequences were devastating in public. She sustained catastrophic injuries, the most severe of which were to her leg. The initial prognosis was grim. What followed was not a matter of weeks or months, but of years. She endured a grueling series of surgeries, each one a battle, each one carrying the hope that she might be made whole again. The physical pain was immense, a constant companion that reshaped her daily existence. But for a performer, the psychological toll was just as profound. Her life had been one of motion, stepping onto a tour bus, walking to the center stage microphone, feeling the energy of a live audience. Now, Her world had shrunk to hospital rooms and physical therapy sessions. The future, which had once seemed a clear path of music and performance, was now a terrifying, uncertain fog. She fought for years to save her leg, to reclaim the life she had known. But the damage was too severe. The pain became chronic, the complications relentless. Finally, after nearly a decade of struggle, her doctors presented her with a stark and terrible choice. In 2004, to save her from life-threatening infections and intractable pain, they had to amputate her leg. It's almost impossible to comprehend the weight of that moment. For Margie, it was not just the loss of a limb, it was the definitive end of an era. It was the final heartbreaking acknowledgement that she would never again walk unassisted onto the Opry stage. The dream that had sustained her since childhood, the identity that had defined her for a lifetime, was irrevocably altered. The applause had faded, the stage lights had dimmed, and she was left to face a new and profoundly challenging reality. For many, this would have been a final crushing blow. A descent into bitterness and regret would have been understandable, but Margie Bowes was forged of something stronger. Her greatest performance was yet to come, and it would take place far from any stage. In the aftermath of her amputation, Margie Bowes made a conscious choice. She chose not to be defined by her loss, but by her will to live. The resilience that had carried a 17-year-old girl onto a national stage now manifested in a quieter, more personal, but no less powerful way. She could no longer be the touring artist she once was, but the creative spirit within her demanded an outlet. She simply redirected the current of her artistry into new and fulfilling channels. She had long been involved in the business side of music, and now she poured her energy into her own publishing company, which she could run from her home. This allowed her to remain deeply connected to the craft of songwriting, to nurture new talent, and to stay engaged with the industry she loved, but on her own terms. It was a testament to her sharp mind and her deep understanding of the music business, proving that her contributions went far beyond her celebrated voice. But her creative renaissance didn't stop there. She discovered a passion for other forms of artistic expression. She began to write not just songs, but prose, exploring the world through a different lens. She took up painting, trading the immediate emotional release of a song for the patient, layered process of bringing an image to life on canvas. She found joy and purpose in designing greeting cards, small, beautiful acts of creation that could bring comfort and connection to others. This second act of her life was a profound statement about the nature of identity. Margie Bowes demonstrated that she was more than just Margie Bowes, the country singer. She was a creator, an artist to her very core. The medium had changed, but the impulse, the need to express the beauty and pain of the human experience, remained as strong as ever. She built a new life, one marked not by the roar of the crowd, but by the quiet satisfaction of a well-turned phrase, a perfect brushstroke, or a beautifully designed card. She lived with a positivity and grace that was an inspiration to all who knew her. She refused to be a tragedy. Instead, she became a symbol of incredible strength and the enduring power of a creative soul to find light in even the deepest darkness. So why does the story of Margie Bowes still matter today? In our modern culture of fleeting viral fame and carefully curated online personas, her life offers a powerful and necessary counter-narrative. Her legacy is not simply contained in the grooves of her records. It is woven into the very fabric of country music history and serves as a profound lesson in human resilience. Her historical significance is twofold. First, as an artist, She was part of a pivotal generation of women who helped shape the Nashville sound. Alongside pioneers like Patsy Cline and Jean Shepherd, she proved that female artists could be commercially successful and critically respected, paving the way for the generations of women who would follow. Her hit, Poor Old Heartsick Me, remains a perfect capsule of its time, a beautifully crafted recording that captured the emotional honesty of traditional country music within the more sophisticated framework of the Nashville sound. She was a vital thread in the rich tapestry of the Grand Ole Opry during its golden age at the Reman. To have been a member of that institution for so long is in itself a mark of significant contribution, but perhaps her more enduring legacy lies in the second act of her life. Her story forces us to look beyond the narrow metrics of chart positions and album sales. It asks us to consider a different definition of success. Is success only the time spent in the spotlight, or is it also found in the quiet dignity with which one faces unimaginable adversity? Margie's response to her life-altering accident, her refusal to surrender to despair, her reinvention as a publisher and an artist, her insistence on living a positive and creative life, is a masterclass in courage. What we can learn from her is the profound truth that our identity is not solely defined by our profession or our physical abilities. We are the sum of our choices, especially the choices we make when life deals us an unfair hand. Margie Bowes chose grace over bitterness, creation over destruction, and hope over regret. Her story is a vital reminder that some of the most beautiful music of a lifetime is made when no one is listening, in the quiet moments of perseverance that define the true character of a soul. She still matters because she represents the thousands of other artists whose contributions were real and meaningful, even if their names aren't the first we remember. She represents the quiet strength that underpins the glamour of show business and the unbreakable spirit that truly deserves a standing ovation. Margie Marie Bowes passed away on October 22nd, 2020, at the age of 79. She left behind a legacy of music, but also a legacy of quiet, indomitable strength. Hers is a story that doesn't end with a fade to black after the final encore. It's a story that continues in the quiet resilience she showed in the last decades of her life. We are so often drawn to tales of spectacular rises and tragic falls, but perhaps the most meaningful stories are found in what happens after the fall. They are found in the slow, difficult, and courageous act of getting back up, even if you can't stand in the same way you did before. Margie Bowes got back up. She found a new way to stand, a new way to create, a new way to live. Her voice may no longer ring out from the stage of the Grand Ole Opry, but her story resonates with a deeper, more enduring truth. It speaks of a life fully lived, embracing both the blinding glare of the spotlight and the profound challenges of the shadows. It's a melody of triumph, heartbreak, and above all, incredible grace. And it's a story that once heard is impossible to forget,